Hello and welcome to Selective Preparation Power Reading Test 9. So the first text that we will look at is an excerpt from The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. In the test, as you would sit it, you would first read through the text in its entirety and then go on to attempt the questions. But for the purposes of this video, we will jump ahead to the questions to show you how to approach answering the questions. So question 1, the treatment of Johnny by his mother can be best described as, right? So we know what we're looking for is, how is Johnny treated by his mother? Is it caring, loving, violent, or neglectful? Let's go back to the text to try and match these keywords. So treatment of Johnny by his mother, and try and match it up to one of the given potential answers, which is either caring, loving, violent, or neglectful. So Johnny Cade was last and least. Okay, last and least. Already we've got words that are sort of negative. It's saying with negative connotations, that's not exactly a positive description of him. It's not saying that it's saying that he is not much of a priority. If you can picture a little dark puppy that has been kicked too many times and is lost in a crowd of strangers, you'll have Johnny. He was the youngest, next to me, smaller than the rest, with a slight build. He had big black eyes and a dark tanned face. His hair was jet black and heavily greased and combed to the side, but it was so long that it fell in shaggy bangs across his forehead. He had a nervous, suspicious look in his eyes, and that beating he got from the socks didn't help matters. He was the gang's pet, everyone's kid brother. His father was always beating him up, so his father was violent towards him, and his mother ignored him. Okay? So his mother wasn't caring, she wasn't loving. His father was violent, that wasn't his mother, but she ignored him, right? Which means she was neglectful. So the answer to question 1 is D. Question 2, Johnny was nervous and suspicious because, so Johnny was nervous and suspicious because, so why was he nervous? Was it because he was naturally shy, he belonged to a gang, he had been abused by others, or he was young? So from what we read together, we already know that it was because he was always being beaten up and being abused. So he had a nervous, suspicious look in his eyes, right? That was the key word. These are the key words, nervous and suspicious. And that beating he got from the socks didn't help matters, right? So he just added on to it. He was the gang's pet, everyone's kid brother. His father was always beating him up and his mother ignored him. So from the keywords that we found in the text and in the question, we know that it's because he's always being abused. The answer is question C. Question 3. For Johnny, the main reason for being part of the gang was, so the main reason for Johnny to be part of the gang was to feel powerful, to feel a sense of belonging, to commit criminal acts, or to behave violently. So, he would have run away a million times if we hadn't been there. We is the gang, right? Because we know this is from the perspective of someone in the gang. He was the youngest next to me, smaller than the rest with a slight build. So me, the narrator, is someone who's part of the gang. He was the gang's pet, everyone's kid brother, right? The narrator is talking from the point of view of a gang member. He would have run away a million times if we hadn't been there. If it hadn't been for the gang, so if it wasn't for the gang, Johnny would never have known what love and affection are. So Johnny gets his love and affection, or sense of belonging, which is one of the key words from the list of potential answers, from the gang. So we know that the answer has to be to feel a sense of belonging, right? It wasn't to feel powerful because in the gang he was everyone's pet. He was the lowest in the hierarchy of the gang. It wasn't to commit criminal acts because he was always nervous and suspicious, and it wasn't to behave violently either because, again, he was always nervous and suspicious. It was to get love and affection or to feel a sense of belonging. Question 4 talks about the emotion of Johnny. The main emotion Johnny would have felt when being yelled at by his mother. So we're looking for what did Johnny most likely feel when he was being yelled at by his mother? Humiliation, pleasure, surprise, disappointment. It's unlikely to be pleasure because why would you like being yelled at? All right, but let's go back to the text to look at what it was. His father was always beating him up and his mother ignored him, except when she was hacked off at something. So she's annoyed and she's yelling at him. And then you could hear her yelling at him, clear down at our house. I think he hated that worse than getting shipped. So shipped here means beaten, right? So it's unlikely to be surprised. The text doesn't mention anything about surprise or disappointment, right? It doesn't say anything about him not expecting it. And it's definitely not pleasure. Humiliation is the one that makes the most sense because the text says that he would have hated that more than anything. Then we move on to text 2, which is a weather forecast from the Herald Sun from July 2008. So question 1 is the context of the newspaper. The forecast is a newspaper on, so Friday, Saturday, Thursday, or Wednesday. So we're trying to figure out the day, right? And when we look at the text, it says today, so the day was released, tomorrow, the day after. The day after tomorrow is Monday, so we know tomorrow has to be Sunday. And the day before Sunday is Saturday. So from that, we know that the answer is B, Saturday. Question 6, on Tuesday, rain will mainly fall in mountain areas, the morning, coastal regions, or the city. Let's go look at Tuesday. Areas of rain, chiefly about the ranges and over the northeast. So ranges is mountains, mountain ranges. So we know that the answer is A, mountain regions. Question 7, which of the following lists has descriptions of wind in increasing levels of strength? Okay, so increasing. Let's see, A, moderate, light, gale force, strong. It can't be A because moderate means medium and light is the lowest, right? So how can you go from medium to low and that be increasing? Right, so it can't be A. I'm sorry for my writing, that says medium. This is low. And gale force is like really, really strong, right? So this is the strongest. So this doesn't make sense because it's going medium, low, strongest, strong. That's not increasing. Moderate, so medium, low, strong, strongest. Doesn't make sense because we start with medium, not low. Low, strong, medium, strongest. Still doesn't make sense because we go from strong to medium. Low, medium, strong, strongest. So D is the one that makes sense and our answer is D. Right? And then text 3, planes grounded for opening night. So this was an article also in the Herald Sun. So question 8 asks us, why were the flights banned? The flights were banned due to an order by the Beijing Capital Airport, Chinese government, Civil Aviation Authority, International Olympic Committee. So we're going to go back to the text and look for an order for the flights being banned and who it was given by, right? So flights to and from Beijing will be grounded during the Olympic Games opening ceremony on August 8. Airlines have received a notice. So this is an order. A notice is an order. Oh. That in order to guarantee the security of the Olympics, they have to ban flights. Sorry for the lining. Okay, so they have to ban flights. So the order is to ban flights according to the demands of the Civil Aviation Authority. So the answer is C, Civil Aviation Authority. Question 9. As a visitor to China, President Bush would be best considered as a tourist, foreigner, dignitary, or guest. So President Bush, it's in the name already, right? He's an official. Now we'll go back to the text to check if he's going there for official purposes. So dozens of heads of state. So we know lots of heads of state, so it's not just President Bush, are expected to attend the ceremony. So it's not just President Bush, and they're all there as heads of state. So it can't be tourist, right? And it's unlikely to be foreigner, because there's lots of other people there with him. And it's unlikely to be guest, because it's heads of state. The key word was heads of state, and lots of them are expected to attend the ceremony. It's an official event. So he's there as a dignitary. Okay, so the answer is C. Then question 10, which word would best describe the usual state of traffic in Beijing? So best describe the usual state of traffic in Beijing. So uncontested, chaotic, controlled, or carefree. Let's go back to the text. So Beijing residents enjoy the novelty. So novelty means new or rare, of congestion-free streets. So the fact that the streets are free of congestion, so congestion being traffic, so that the fact that the streets are free of traffic is new and rare. That means that usually the streets are full of traffic, right? As the city launched strict driving curbs to rein in its notorious air pollution and traffic. So notorious means famous for being bad. Notorious means famous for being bad. So we know that traffic is usually famous for being bad, and it's usually really, the streets are usually full to the brim. So we know it's not controlled, it's not carefree, it's not uncontested, it is chaotic. So the answer is B, chaotic. Okay, that's all of the questions that we had to go through, and that brings us to the key points from the test. And one of the key points, of course, is to always read the text or go back to the text to match keywords from the questions and potential answers to keywords or phrases in the text, right? So you have to remember that the answer is always on the paper in front of you. You don't have to look anywhere else. You just have to read carefully and look carefully, right? So the questions that we went through had to do with character, emotions of the characters, context. So that's how the text is set up, or in what context the text is being written. Description. So this description was didn't have to do with anything with the text specifically, but to do with your own knowledge that you would order. Reasoning and characterization, right? So the questions that were asking for things that had to do with your own knowledge, they still had clues that you could use from the text to find your answer. So even if you don't know something in terms of general knowledge, look to the text for clues to the most likely answer. Okay? And that's the end of this video. Thank you, and I hope it helped.